Welcome to Spicy Toast Gaming and our Lillia guide for Path of Champions. If you enjoy the video, like and subscribe, and let's get into it. Up first, we're going through a brief overview of the champion, just so you know the overall playstyle of the champion and if they're worth investing your time and resources into. Up first, we have Sleep. This is one of the new mechanics added this patch. You're able to store your own units or enemy units in a landmark for 1 round. So it's a countdown 1 landmark. This is going to be an exact copy of the unit, including any attachments or equipment that they have. This is a great way to stop an enemy from attacking, control the board, keep them from triggering a spell, protect some of your own units. A lot of different ways you can use this mechanic, and also it's very good for summon effects, which is the next point for the overview. Summon effects. You can trigger summon effects many times because you can sleep your unit, the landmark will count down, they'll get summoned again. So you can use a lot of cards and kind of exploit summon mechanics much more than just about any other champion in the game. Next up then, we have landmarks. Since this sleep mechanic is storing your unit in a countdown 1 landmark, you do have some landmark synergy. Now you're not necessarily a landmark deck, such as like Lillia, but for some champions that have synergy with especially destroying landmarks, because when your landmark counts down, it technically gets destroyed, you do have some synergy there. Moving on though, we have created units. Any effect that is triggering units that you're summoning but not actually playing, you have a lot of great synergies there. Your star powers really benefit you when you're able to summon units without actually playing them. Now this can be obviously triggered from your main mechanic of sleep, but that is not the only way you're able to benefit. So any other decks or cards that are able to summon units without playing them can really help you out. Last up then, we have control. Through this sleep mechanic, you're really able to control the entire board, protecting your own units, keeping the enemy units at bay. Now, while you're maybe not stunning or frostbiting the enemy, or having a lot of removal spells to take them off the board, at least permanently, you do have a lot of mechanics to just control the board and control the state of the game. So if you like that more control playstyle, this is definitely a champion for you to check out. That's it for this overview though. Let's go hop in game, better explain some of these points. All right, in game now, you see we have Lillia at level 30 with 3 stars. So they are she is a 3-cost 2/1 champion, but you have that spirit, so really you're a 3/2 with that quick attack. One of them summoned or strike, create a dream-laden bow in hand, or if you have one, reduce its cost by 1. So you see that right here, 2-cost slow, sleep an ally. Again, that sleep, obliterate a unit, recall its attachments to store an exact copy in a landmark for 1 round. So you're able to create that when you're summoned or strike, so having some strike relics such as Stalker's Blade actually work out quite well here. And then the level up is you've summoned 15 allies or landmarks. And since when you sleep a unit, they get put in a landmark, that is how that comes into play right there. Now, when you are leveled, you go to a 3/2, again with that spirit, so an additional 1/1. And now when you sleep another ally, immediately wake it up and grant it spirit. So you put it in a landmark, but then you immediately get it out of that landmark, again, triggering those summon effects immediately and granting it some spirit, so an additional 1/1, really nice right there. This is also very strong because you can get 2 Lillias on the board. You can play one, especially before they're leveled. You can then sleep it, so it's technically not on the board, it's now just a landmark, and then you can play another Lillia. Once you have them leveled, when you put one to sleep, the other one will immediately wake them up. So some very strong synergies right there, and a very easy way to just get multiple of your champion going. As far as your star powers, so up first you have when you summon a unit without playing it, grant it spirit twice. Now this is the 3-star version. If you have the 1-star, you just grant it spirit. You don't grant it spirit twice. And this is really important because it's when you summon a unit without playing it. So anytime like you're waking them up from your landmark, or any effects that summon units, like powers that summon units at the start of the game, or effects that summon units such as like summoning a sand soldier, summoning blades with Aurelia, there's a lot of different synergies you have for summoning units without technically playing them. So really interesting power. I love how it's pretty broad. There's a lot of ways you can really utilize this. As far as the 2-star, you get that +1 starting mana, and a round start, create a blooming bud in hand. If you already have one, reduce this cost by 1. So you see that right here. This is also Lillia's champion spell, but 3 cost fast, sleep a unit. And this is the landmark that they get placed into. This is really nice because Lillia is not your only way to sleep a unit. Now she can create those dream-laden bows in hand, so she can make another sleep spell, but then you also have this spell right here. So it's nice you have multiple ways to sleep your units to help trigger those summon effects. This also gives you a large amount of control, and you can play very similarly to how you do with like your Kindred, that has a similar effect of creating a spell in hand that you can either target your own units to save them, or target enemy units to negatively influence and just control the board overall. So very good star powers right here. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the starting deck. So up first we have the Spritelings. So 1 cost 0/0, but they have that spirit, so really they're a 2/2 because they have spirit twice, and they have that serrated dirk, so fearsome. Not that big of an upgrade to be honest, but still a solid 1-drop. Next then we have the Green Glade Lookout. So 2 cost 3/3 because of that studded leather, and they also get the quick attack. Both of these are from upgrades of leveling up, and has strike, reduce the cost of the most expensive unit in hand by 1. It's not really that great of summon synergy or anything like that, but just a solid all-around card. Next up then we get Keeper of the Masks. So 2 cost 3/2, and this gets Barrier as well as Flash Bomb Satchel. So when I'm summoned, plant 4 Flash Bomb traps in the top 8 cards of the enemy deck, and when I'm summoned, give me Barrier. It also has the card text of when I'm summoned, give allies 1 power this round. So this is a prime target for you to put to sleep and then keep summoning, so you can keep giving it Barrier, keep triggering these Flash Bomb traps or putting them in the enemy deck, and then also buffing up your own units. So this card is doing a lot for you. Up next, we have the Dewdrop Harvest. So another story landmark, 2 cost. Up first, summon a Spriteling. So you're summoning this unit without actually playing it. So that's triggering your star powers right there. And then sleep an ally. So another way you can sleep your own units to trigger those summon effects 1 more time. And this has that Elixir of Skill on it. So when you play it, you're going to be drawing 1. Next up then we have Lillia herself. And then moving on, we have the Shadow Assassin. So 3 cost elusive, 3/2 from that studded leather. And this has the effect of when I'm summoned, draw 1. So again, some more summon synergy for you. If you're ever running low on cards, you can just keep putting this to sleep, waking it up, and letting this draw more cards for you. Next up then, we have the Coastal Defender. So 4 cost, 2/6 with that Great Club. And now when you summon another ally, give me 2 power this round. You can just put this on your board, and then as you're summoning more and more units, this will get that scaling buff. Now, while this buff will just last for the round, one thing you could do is scale up this unit, because you summoned a bunch of other units this round, and then put it to sleep in that landmark. That landmark is going to save an exact copy of it, including all of those stats, even though they're supposed to be temporary. You'll then wake it up next round, but it's still going to have all of those same stats. With these landmarks, you're actually able to essentially snapshot your character's stats and keep them from triggering round end effects, such as like dying to ephemeral or just losing a bunch of stats like they would right here. So the landmarks are good not only for re-triggering summon effects, but also for saving your units from round end effects. So it's a very versatile mechanic. Next up then we have Concussive Palm, so 4 cost fast, stun an enemy to summon a Tail of the Dragon. So another way to control the board, and another unit that you're summoning without actually playing. So when you play this, you're going to trigger your star powers, get that extra spirit, and be a little bit stronger. Last up then we have the Dream Light Alina. So 8 cost, 3/3, so pretty rough as far as cost. Does have that spirit, so really it's going to be a 4/4 because of that phage. When I'm summoned, summon 5 Spritelings. For each one there isn't space for, grant the weakest ally 2 spirit instead. I know it's kind of blocked off by the item here. So you're summoning a bunch of Spritelings without actually playing them, and you're actually summoning enough to completely fill your board. Now if you happen to have some other cards or landmarks and there's not space for these Spritelings, they're able to buff your other weakest units. So pretty solid card. and one that you maybe could get some cost reduction for with your Green Glade Lookout. Overall, it's a pretty decent deck with a lot of great summon mechanics. Personally, I would hope that they would give us some cards that we haven't necessarily seen in some other starting decks, such as like Coastal Defender, Concussive Palm, Green Glade Lookout, and maybe give us a little bit more of Lillia's support package, because honestly, we have almost none of the cards that released with her in her starting deck. So that is a little disappointing, but as far as how the deck plays, it plays very well. Taking a look at relics now, there is so many fun relics for you to pick with Lillia. Let's start off with the common relics. As you can see right here, I have Everfrost. When I'm summoned, stun the strongest enemy. Really powerful effect, and even though this is a common, you can use this even in the end game. Since you're able to trigger summon effects so many times, this is actually a very solid item for you to have. Now, I wouldn't necessarily put this in when you're first leveling Lillia. I would still probably go with the go-to of Chameleon's Necklace. She is a 3 cost. You're going to want to play her and have her on your board throughout the entire game. So before you get that champion draw at level 20, the Chameleon's Necklace will really help you make sure you get your champion and can actually play them. So this is the one I would go when you're first leveling Lillia, but especially after you hit level 20 and you have a common slot, maybe throw in Everfrost. Also, any extra copies you get of Lillia are converted into the Blooming Bud, since this is her champion spell. So even if you have her on the board, drawing extra copies of her is still very helpful. Moving on though, let's take a look at some rare relics. Up first, we have the Transmodulators to support. Transform my supported ally into a random follower that costs 3 more. There's a unit. Up first, I want to talk about one that probably don't actually want to use necessarily. So the Grand General's Counterplan. Round start, create a fleeting copy of me in hand. And this really goes for all round start mechanics. So this, as well as the Archangel Staff or even the Arcane Comet, since quite often, especially earlier in a match, you're going to have Lillia potentially being in a landmark while the next round turns over, you won't trigger your round start effects. So a lot of these, even though they can be good relics for most champions, not necessarily the best for Lillia. So these are actually relics you probably want to lean away from. You can definitely use them, but there are going to be times where you're putting your champion to sleep and these won't trigger even though your champion is on the board. Moving on though, we actually have the Dreadway Chase Gun. So when I'm summoned, create 2 warning shots in hand. This is a little bit more of a cheesier build, but since you can summon Lillia so many times, would actually be decent if you want to go for a more burn playstyle of throwing a Dreadway Chase Gun, maybe pairing that with a Luden's Tempest or 2. And you can often get multiple Lillias on the board fairly easily, and each one of them will have a Luden's Tempest, so they're all stacking and increasing the damage of your spells and skills. You can very easily get 2 Lillias on the board, both of them boosting up your damage. They're able to put each other to sleep, instantly waking them up, summoning and triggering these chase guns. You can just go for a burn damage style playstyle and just try to go that way. While this might not work that well in some of the tougher challenges like Lysandra, it would be a fun build to go with through most adventures. Next though, let's talk about the Stalker's Blade. This is actually a very good relic for Lillia, and one that I probably recommend for your first rare relic slot as you're leveling her up. So when I'm summoned, I strike the weakest enemy. But also we have the text here of when I'm summoned or strike, create a Dream-Laden Bow in hand. So this is a great way to get some cost reduction for your sleep spell right here, because you're summoning her, she is then making one, and then she's also getting a strike off, so she's reducing it down as well. And then when you put her to sleep and wake her up, she's able to keep getting those strikes off. Now, while these strike relics, again, might fall off potentially in some of the later matches or later games, while you're leveling up, these are very good relics. You can just keep triggering them, and it'll then let you get some more sleeps off. So some really solid synergy right here with Lillia. Another great relic though is the Guardian Orb. So when I'm summoned, grant epic items 3 random cards in your deck. Again, really pairing well with that summon synergy. This is what I would normally use to replace Stalker's Orb in the late game, throwing on a couple of these, continually summoning your champion throughout the match, and having that just buff up your whole deck can really help you out. Now note, if you're going to go for this playstyle, you probably want to cut the landmark from your deck, because it'll actually just take up a lot of the epic slots, but they're ones that don't really help you at all. So just a little bit of a tip for you there. but Guardian Orb is really handy and can definitely help you out. Moving on to some epic relics. Up first, we have the Spectral Scissors. So 2 power, support, grant my supported ally Ephemeral, and summon an exact copy of it attacking. Now, I don't think this is necessarily the best for Lillia, but you can often get 2 of your champion on the board. So you can always do that broken combo of just attacking with one of your champion, having it support the other with the Spectral Scissors, and then just getting an entire board of your champion attacking. And again, this is triggering your summon mechanics once again. So while Lillia, you normally want to keep your units alive and just scaling, this would be an option for you if you want to be a little bit more aggressive and you're fine with some of your units dying because they will be having that ephemeral. Another epic relic that I don't think would necessarily be optimal but could be pretty fun would be the Portal Pal. So when I'm summoned, create 2 random 7 or higher cost units from your regions and reduce its cost by my base costs. So you're definitely able to summon Lillia a lot, so you can trigger this many times. Probably just overfill your hand with large units, but could be pretty fun as well. The new epic relic, the Fear Cleaving Axe, is actually pretty solid for you. So Spirit, so you have another 1/1, and attack boost all units. Most of your units are going to be having that Spirit as well. So if you wanted, you could just attack and boost up and scale your whole board a little bit more. Whilst this is definitely a valid strategy, I don't think it's as needed as it is, especially for someone like Lux, because with Lux, when she's leveled, she's essentially doubling all of the spirit generation you're doing, so she makes that boost feel much more impactful. For Lillia, it's not bad, but not as necessary. The epic relic that I think really shines with Lillia is actually Echoing Spirit. So game start, create 7 copies of me in your deck. Champion spells cost 1 less. So this pretty much guarantees you're going to be drawing your Lillia at the start of the game, so you can immediately play her. Then when she's on the board, those champion spells will cost less. Her champion spell is the Blooming Bud. So making these cost even cheaper will really just help you put your whole board to sleep, and it'll make sure you have enough Lillias to play so you can play not only your first Lillia, but also potentially some other copies as well. So this one actually pairs very well with your overall game plan, and decent build is you could go for Echoing Spirit, Guardian Orb, Stalker's Blade, or even the Everfrost. I actually used this build right here to clear Lysandra and worked out pretty well. The Everfrost was letting you stall a little bit longer, and the Guardian Orb was just helping you scale up your deck to the point where you just have so many epic items that not even Lysandra can really stand up against you. So there's a lot of different fun builds you can do here with Lillia, and I definitely encourage you to experiment with it. That's it for the in-game portion. Let's go now take a look at what powers you might want to look out for, some cards to look out for, support champions, and finish out with her rankings. All right, on to powers. So up here, first on the left, we have Rush Them Down. When you summon an ally, give it 1/1 this round. All around a decent power, but for most champions, you can only benefit this when you first summon a unit or when you first play the unit. But with Lillia, you're able to summon these units many different times and in many different rounds. And so you can potentially keep this buff permanently on your units, and it's just further incentivizing you to summon and resummon your whole board. Next up then, or here in the middle, we have Trifarian Might. When you summon a 5+ power ally, it strikes the weakest enemy. This is very nice. While most of your units won't be able to trigger this when they are first played, you can put them to sleep. They'll get that extra spirit from your star powers, and when they wake up, they'll be strong enough to hit the enemy. Then you can just put them back to sleep again and just keep triggering this many different times, giving you a bunch of free removal, which is very nice. Last up then here, we have Afterlife Forbidden. When an ally dies for the first time, summon a Haunted Tomb. So that is another landmark with Countdown 2, revive the strongest ally. So this is another great way to summon one of your units without actually playing them. And while it might revive the unit that died, if you have a more powerful unit die while this is counting down, they will then actually be the ones summoned from this Haunted Tomb. So just some nice synergy for you there. Next up then, we have Seat of Power, summon a Emperor's Dais. So what that is, it's a landmark that's going to sit on your board, and then when you attack, you get a attacking Sand Soldier, which is then summoned but not played. Again, triggering your star powers, so it is going to be a little bit stronger. Now that unit is ephemeral. Normally you do want to keep your units alive and on the board, so this one isn't perfect but does have some synergies, and so it's one to look out for, especially as a common power. Next up then, Titanic Wake. When you summon a unit with 8 attack, health, or cost, grant it 8/8. Similar to Trifarian Might, most of your units aren't going to be able to trigger this when they're first played, but again, you can just put them to sleep and scale them up to the point where they can then trigger this, getting even more stats. Then if you put them to sleep again, they'll keep those stats. When you wake them up, they'll again get an additional 8/8. So really a great way to scale your units to ridiculous amounts, although this is a little bit slower than most other powers. Last up then, we have Gearing Up. Game start, summon 2 armed gearheads. So summoning 2 units at the start of the game, really nice, but again, you're not playing these, so they're getting those extra buffs from your star powers, which is very nice. The last 3 powers we're going to showcase here. Up first on the left, we have Share the Bounty. When you target an ally with a single target spell, copy it on your weakest ally. Now, this can be incredibly powerful, but you do have to be very mindful of this. Your main sleep spells are going to be single target, so when you target one of your units, this can double that spell and target another one of your units. Really nice when you are finishing up a match, or finishing up a round rather. You can just put your whole board to sleep, so that next round they'll all come back being a lot stronger. But this can really negatively affect you if you're accidentally putting too many of your units to sleep right before the enemy attacks or does something like that. So definitely one to be mindful of, but as long as you're using it correctly, it can really help you out. Here in the middle then, the Biggle Dust Stash. So when you summon a created ally, grant it 2/2, you're going to be able to create and summon a lot of allies, so you'll be able to trigger this very often. And while I don't have it on the slides here, another power that functions pretty much the same as this, if not actually better, is the new epic power they added about a patch or 2 ago called the Grandeur Plaza, where when you summon a unit, you give it 2/2 challenger and a random keyword for the round. Really good for you because even though it's a temporary buff, you can just keep summoning your unit to gain that again. Last up though, we have Duelist. When you summon an ally, give it challenger this round. Again, normally a temporary buff, but you can just keep triggering this many different times, even on a single unit. So letting you have challenger on whatever unit you want, really nice. Next, let's take a look at support champions. As always, not an exhaustive list, just some support champions that do have some decent synergies with Lillia. Up first, we have summoned units, so anyone else that really helps you summon units without playing them, just synergizes really well with your star powers, can help you level up your Lillia faster, and normally a champion to look out for. Next up then, we have landmarks, especially any champions that scale with destroying landmarks, because all of your sleep landmarks constantly counting down and getting destroyed will be great for them. So first up for the actual champions, we have Aurelia. Aurelia with all of your blades, all of those counting as summoned units, will be great. You can get your Lillia leveled very quickly from all those extra blades, and those blades will be very big because they're just going to be getting buffed from all of your star powers. Next up then we have Azir. Azir also able to summon a bunch of units with all of his sand soldiers, so a lot of great synergies right there for you as well. And then last up we have Xerath. Xerath is all about destroying landmarks, and so you're going to have great synergy with having him on the board, damaging enemy units every time one of your sleep landmarks counts down. Xerath could be an absolutely amazing support champion for you. Next up then, we have some cards to look out for. So here on the left, we have the Petal Pixie. When I'm summoned, summon a Spriteling. Any card that's going to be summoning other units for you, really one to look out for. Next then, we have the Vanguard's Edge, so slow. Pick an ally to attack alongside the blades, and then Blade Dance 3. Solid all-around card, but you're getting 3 blades summoned. That'll be very strong for helping you level up your Lillia and just putting a lot of pressure on the enemy. Green Glade Duo, when you summon another ally, give me 1 power this round. So with cheap elusive, and you can just summon a bunch of units to scale up this card's power. Really solid right there. Mr. Root, when I'm summoned, draw 1. You can use this just as a draw engine because you can keep putting it to sleep, resummoning it, and just getting a whole bunch of draw from this card. Next up then, the Navori Blade Scout. When I'm summoned, give me elusive this round. So normally, it only has elusive for 1 round, but you can just keep putting it to sleep, waking it back up, and triggering that elusive essentially indefinitely. Last up then, Risen Mist. So summon a Mist Wraith. This is a spell that's going to summon a unit for you, and since the spell is doing the summoning, you're not technically playing that unit. So it's a great way to trigger your star powers, and then the Mist Wraith itself also has a summon effect, so you can potentially keep putting that card to sleep waking it back up and triggering its summon effect over and over again. As you see here, anytime you see summon as the card text, take a look at it. You might want to add it to your deck. Lastly, let's finish out with some pros and cons and the rankings. So I think before level 20, A tier champion, really solid. After level 20 though, I think they do actually go up to that S tier. You can get some more relic slots, make you feel a lot more powerful. There are some great relics like we talked about earlier that you have some amazing synergies with. You can just control the entire board, scale your units out of control with those like guardian orbs, and overall even the toughest encounters of the game you can reliably clear without too much hassle. As far as some pros, some great unique card and power interactions. I love how you can exploit all these different summon effects. No other deck in the game can really do what you do. LeBlanc can be somewhat similar with being able to summon so many copies of LeBlanc, but here you can do this with any card you want in your deck and just get as many copies of it going as you want. As far as cons, I really tried to think of some, but most are very niche or just subjective. Like for me personally, I don't really like the direction they went with some of the cards in the starting deck, but I felt that was too subjective to really list as a overall con. Really, there's nothing holding this deck back. There's no overall glaring issues. Yeah, there might be some interactions here and there that could cause problems, but overall just a really, really solid deck. As far as regional rankings, we're going to list it as top, not quite best. It's in the same region as like Yasuo, as well as Master Yi, and Lillia is kind of in that same area as far as power. Like Master Yi right now, with some of the stuff you can do with him, you can just completely end the game round one. And Yasuo just has this ridiculous amount of control. So I'm not quite wanting to say Lillia is just flat out better than both of them, but she's definitely up there with both of those. So definitely top in her region. That's it from the guide though. I hope this helped you out. If it did, definitely like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.